So today we're going to talk about variability. So the variability of a data set describes how spread out the data is. There are several ways to measure variability, but at this grade level we want to keep it basic. So range we talked about last class. Range is the difference between the largest and smallest numbers. So we've done that before. The next thing of variability that we learn is called the mean absolute deviation, or the MAD, but we're going to write down the definition later. Just make sure you have the range definition down. We did this last lesson, so hopefully you remember it. Okay, so Terry plays on the middle school basketball team. The number of points he has scored in each game is below. So we want to find the following. So first we want to find median. Luckily they already listed it out for us in order, so we're just going to pick the middle. There's two middle numbers. Right? The way you could tell if it's an odd number, there's going to be one middle number. If there's even, there's going to be two. And the average of 19 and 19 is just 19. So, you know, it's already in order. If you want to make notes, right? Already in order. And then average of 19 and 19 is 19, right? So if you don't remember that, you need to remember to put it in order. I had a few people yesterday that were just trying to find the middle numbers and they didn't put it in order and they obviously got it wrong. Okay, so for the mean, we have to add them all up. And then we divide by how many there are. So there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Remember, we're going to do the top part first in our calculator and then divide by 8. So don't try to type it all in at once. 17, 18, 18, 19, 19, 20, 21, 24. We get 156 and then divide it by 8. We're going to get 19.5 is our mean. And we can see that the 19 and 19.5, they're pretty close. So that is good. All right, range. Range, we know that it's the largest number minus the smallest number. So 24 minus 17 is 7. And then finally, we have mean absolute deviation. So if you look here, the way that this was like organized is this is central tendency. So these are like the numbers in the middle, right? This is from S12.1. And this is variability. So now, before we were talking about where the data was, like where the center was. And now we're talking about how spread out the data is. Okay, so let's find the definition for mean absolute deviation. So this is the average distance between each data point and the mean of the data set. So this may seem really confusing. First time you just want to write it down. There's going to be 3 steps to this, so make sure you have room to write those 3 steps. And I recommend reading this definition once we're done with the lesson so that it sort of makes more sense. Because the first time you read it, you're going to be like, what is this even saying? Okay, so the first step is that we want to find the difference between each point and the mean. Okay, so we're going to find the difference between each point and the mean. So this is going to be a little tedious. Okay, so I'm going to list out my points like this. 17, 18, 18, 19, 19, 20, 21, 24. And we want to find the difference between each data point and the mean. So I'm going to subtract the mean from all of these. Right, we calculated the mean up above. I'm obviously doing this the really long, drawn-out way. If you can figure out shortcuts or you feel comfortable doing it in your calculator, by all means, go ahead. But this is a good way to see how you calculate this MAD, mean absolute deviation. So 17 minus 19.5 is going to give me negative 2.5. This is going to be negative 1.5, another negative 1.5, negative 0.5, negative 0.5, positive 0.5, positive 1.5, and then 24 minus 19.5 is a positive 4.5. So all we're doing, right, if we look at the steps, it says find the difference between each point and the mean. So I took each point and I found the difference, right, subtracting of the mean, which was from here. So if you want to remember where you get that number from, this nice red sparkly pen. Okay, second step. Take the absolute value of these differences. Take the absolute value of these differences. So take the absolute value of step number 1. That's why it's called mean absolute deviation. So if you can remember what MAD stands for, you should be able to remember the steps. Or, you know, if you just do the practice enough, you'll be able to remember the steps. So take the absolute value of these differences. If you don't remember what absolute value is, I'll put a note over here to the side. So these are the symbols for absolute value. They just turn everything positive. There's like a more specific thing, but that's the easiest way to say it. So if I say absolute value of negative 3, that equals 3. If I say absolute value of 3, it just stays 3. It doesn't make it the opposite. It doesn't turn positive. It doesn't turn a positive into a negative. It just keeps it positive. So if I have these symbols, that says absolute value. So if you remember that, cool. There's little, that's like a simple explanation of absolute value, but it's good enough for this lesson. All right. So we can, if you're taking time to copy, we'll come back. So we want to take the absolute value of these differences. So this will become a positive 2.5, positive 1.5, positive 1.5, positive 0.5, positive 0.5. This, and then these three stay positive. Okay, and then our final step, we're going to find the average or mean of step 2. So all those numbers that I turned positive in step 2, I'm now going to take another average, right? Lots of averaging. Seems a little tedious. That's because it is. Okay. So I'll put it down here. So I'm going to do 2.5 plus 1.5 plus 1.5 plus 0.5 plus 0.5 plus 0.5 plus 1.5 plus 4.5. Again, if you can do this in your calculator, you don't really have to show the work, but it's nice to have it laid out in front of you, especially if you are a visual learner or you have a lot of typos in the calculator. And we still have those 8 numbers, so it's still 8 down there. So 5 plus 1.5 plus 1.5 plus 0.5 plus 0.5 plus 0.5 plus 1.5 plus 4.5. 13 divided by 8 is going to give me 1.625. All right, so these 3 were much easier to calculate. This was really annoying. But the steps are not that bad. It's literally just subtraction and taking another average. Right, so if we look back at the steps, the mean absolute deviation is the average distance between each data point and the mean of the data set. Okay, so we're going to do a few more examples together, but that is pretty much all the new stuff for today. All right, so Chris is a player on a different team. The number of points he has scored in each game is below. Find the following. So he also has 8 games. They also ordered it already for us. So we know that we're going to take the median, those middle two numbers of 18 and 20. So 18, we're going to take the average. 18 plus 20 divided by 2 is going to give us 19. And now we want to find the mean again. So I would do this along with me on your calculator. I'll write out the steps. See if you get the same thing as me. And then all divided by those 8 games that he scored points in. Divided by 8, and we get 19.5 again. Okay, now we have the range. So this range is a lot different. He scored a max of 35 points in a game, which is a lot, but then there's another game where he only scored 4 points. So our range is much bigger. Our range is 31. Okay, now I want you to pause the video and try to calculate mean absolute deviation. All right, so if you did this properly, you would have gotten 8.25. So the way that we would write it all out is we take all the numbers, we subtract the mean, and then we make it positive. I'm just going to do a positive in one step with my calculator, just to save a little bit of time. So 4 minus 19.5, that's just automatically 15.5. I'm not going to even write the negative sign. I'm just going to ignore the negative sign. If you want to do the negative sign, though, by all means, go for it. 10.5, 5.5, 1.5, 0.5, 4.5. Whoops. 32 minus 19.5. 12.5. 35 minus 19.5. 15.5. And then in my calculator, I'm just going to add them all up instead of writing it all out, just again to save some time. And then divide by 8 still, so 8.25. So there's different things you could do to make it faster, but if you like to write everything out to be safe, like, do it, right? Whatever gets you to the right answer in a confident manner. Okay, so let's look at this question. Which player would you want on your team? Would you rather have Terry, who averages 19, median 19, mean 19.5, range 7, MAD 1.625? Or would you rather have Chris, who has the same median and mean, but they have a bigger range, right? So Terry is more consistent. We know with Terry, we're probably going to get 19 to 20 points out of him. With Chris, sometimes he scores really low and sometimes he scores really high. So it depends on your strategy as like a coach as to which player you would want. There's not one correct answer, but you want to give a reason for it, right? So if you're like, oh, I want Terry because he's more consistent, do that. Or you could be like, I want Chris because he's a wild card. So just make sure you can back up like why you would want someone over the other. But that's why we look at this data. This tells us additional information, right? Because the range and mean absolute deviation is so much bigger for Chris, that tells us more about the way that he plays basketball. All right, one more problem that we'll do together. You should pause the video and try to figure out how to do this Cheerio one. All right, I saw a lot of you got the right answer. So our median, this is the first time we've had to list it, right? Before we could be lazy, but now we have to actually list it. And we see that this one only has 5, so I don't need to take the average of anything. The median is just right here at 11. For my mean, I'm going to add them all up. So 6 plus 8 plus 11 plus 12 plus 13. And now we're going to be over 5 because there's 5 numbers. So we're not going to be over 8. Just however many numbers we're adding together. 10. The range is 13 minus 6, which is 7. And then my MAD, we have 6, 8, 11, 12, 13. If we're taking away 10, we're going to have 4, 2, 1, 2, 3. And then we take the average of those numbers. Let's see. 4 plus 2 plus 1 plus 2 plus 3 divided by 5, 2.4. So this is our information. You can do with it what you want, right? You're like, the mean and the median are pretty close. The range in MAD is they're a little spread out. It's easier when you compare two things, right? Like how I compared these two players. It was easier to compare this data. But you can still find these numbers for any type of data set, right? This is what it's called, a data set. It's like a list of numbers. So that is it for MAD. It's really just a lot of adding, subtracting, taking the average. Just make sure that you understand the different vocabulary so that you can finish it up.